Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 919 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week in NXT and AEW, but this episode is so much more than that. We have a bunch of news to tackle off the top, mostly around WWE SummerSlam. We're going to be going over not one or two, but 3 weeks of AAA, including a live show this past Saturday that had a huge moment at the end. And we are also going to go over a month of booking from TNA Wrestling. We're knocking all of this out in this episode. We're clearing the deck. That way, after SummerSlam, we can finally get back to business and operate as we always have here at Getting Over, with hopefully normal shows and normal special events. All of that is coming up before this episode is out. Before we get into it, Silver King needs to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. Truly hope all of you do that across SummerSlam weekend. That way we can punctuate those the following Tuesday in our WWE SummerSlam second look episode. But even beyond you hitting us up with questions and comments on social media, if you hit us up on YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. And if you visit the link in our social media profiles, you can join our free Slack channel, talk about wrestling all week, every week with a bunch of like-minded folks. You can also subscribe to the show, shop on WWE Shop, and so much more. Find all of it on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, the order of operations for today's show will go as follows. We're actually going to start with AAA. Some of it bleeds into NXT. I figured, you know what? Let's hit that first rather than hit it at the end. So we're going to start with AAA, then hit NXT, go into AEW, and we will conclude the show with TNA. There are timestamps in the episode description. So if for some reason you don't want to hear the dulcet tones of the Silver King discuss all these promotions, you can't skip around. As always, though, we hope you listen to the entire show. And while we have 4 different brands to cover, I promise we will get to all of that soon.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And there are a number of items for us to touch off the top of today's show. ESPN announced it will be presenting a Moment of the Night belt on SportsCenter after each night of WWE SummerSlam. Just so everyone knows, if you saw this floating around on social media, this is what UFC does with its Performance of the Night and Fight of the Night bonuses, which are awarded at the press conference after each numbered event. Except, in this case, it's a belt instead of money. Though maybe WWE will be offering that up behind the scenes as well. Is WWE choosing the Performance of the Night? Is ESPN choosing it? I don't know. I don't have much of an issue with this. It's an honorific. It's a way to get WWE on ESPN after the shows. As far as I'm concerned, no big whoop. Speaking of ESPN, while the 3-hour countdown show will be simulcast on cable TV channels as it has been since this deal started, there will not be a simulcast of Hour 1 from either night of SummerSlam on ESPN or ESPN2. A source with direct ties tells Getting Over that while a certain media member, you-know-who, assumed that this decision was made because the simulcasts were, quote, not working, that could not be further from the truth. Rather, the WWE contract with ESPN dictates the network may only simulcast so many PLE hours each year. Both sides are continuing to explore what is the best way to present the WWE product, with ESPN still wanting to convert subscribers to the unlimited platform when possible, but realizing they cannot do that every single time. Now, ESPN will obviously be evaluating how SummerSlam performs compared to other PLEs, especially WrestleMania, because they're the two tentpole double events. But that's literally done after every single week of TV, whether that is WWE, the NFL, college football, etc. As of now, ESPN does not have strong data indicating whether simulcasts help or hurt the total viewership of these shows. This is part of the exploratory process, as is the reduced promotion of WWE compared to the deluge of special appearances ahead of WrestleMania and Backlash. Fans spoke out about it, so ESPN is tailing back its promotion. That's all that's happening here. And I cannot explain how well-placed this source is to give us this information. I'll just simply say it is not a WWE source because I wouldn't expect WWE to tell us the truth on this matter. I would expect other people to be completely honest. And we have one person, of course, who gave us the information and someone else who confirmed every ounce of it. One more WWE ESPN related note. The CW has reached an agreement to stream all of its sports adjacent content on ESPN Unlimited. That includes weekly NXT episodes and NXT Premium Live events. Now, the first TV episode will be this coming Tuesday, August 4th, and the first PLE will be NXT Heatwave on Sunday, August 30th. It's going to be interesting to see how commercial breaks are handled on the ESPN stream compared to the CW. As you all know, that pissed me off substantially during Great American Bash. For now, Silver King personally, I'm going to continue watching on Netflix with a VPN, but I'll probably sideload ESPN for TV on Tuesday and perhaps the next show, Heatwave, at the end of the month and see what the apples to apples comparison looks like. And when it comes to this whole ESPN Unlimited deal, there's still a few, cable companies and streamers out there where this is not the case, but the deal with YouTube TV has not only been formalized and signed, which had happened months ago, but it's been completed from a technological standpoint. If you are a YouTube TV subscriber, you can now link your account directly to ESPN and you will get ESPN Unlimited in every WWE Premium Live event for no additional charge. I don't want to say free because you're paying for it, of course, with your YouTube TV subscription. We have posted about this on social media. We'll write about this more Friday for those who do subscribe to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. But if you have YouTube TV, which I do, Vintage does, and many other people do who are listening to this show, you can now get the entire WWE suite of PLEs for no additional charge. Moving off of the ESPN tip. WWE announced Thursday that night one of AAA Mania 34 has been moved from the Luxor to the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, expanding seating capacity by about 1,600%. I'm not exaggerating. They are moving from less than a 1,000 seat theater to an arena with a capacity of 17,000.
Thank you!
Now, it looks like WWE is going to set up for around 11,000, and the move came after tickets for this show sold out immediately when they went on sale. I'm not sure we could have nailed this more perfectly upon the original announcement. It did not make a shred of sense for WWE to book such a tiny venue when prior AAA shows in the United States sold thousands of tickets. Now, I have much, much higher hopes for night one, particularly from a production standpoint. And this is obviously great news for the brand itself. WWE is trying to sell this as a United States television or streaming product. They do want to get it off of YouTube where it's currently offered for free. Of course, there are ads. If you use a VPN, you can avoid those. They want a TV or a streamer to have this. It was part of the conversation with NXT. They were going to package the premium events together, try to sell it to Peacock or ESPN or Netflix. Didn't happen. NXT is on the CW, even for the PLEs. Maybe that's where AAA winds up. I don't know if the CW wants to get into Mexican wrestling on a late Saturday night. Maybe they move it to a time during the week. We'll find out. Aaliyah Mysterio has apparently signed with WWE to begin working in the Performance Center. She posted photos of a farewell party on social media, referenced her moving to Florida and joining WWE, and Dominic spoke about this during a media interview this week. It was long expected. She's 24. She's basically joining WWE at the same stage of life as Dominic, who was supposed to have a dual role on TV. He was going to be with Ray, main roster, while training in the PC. But due to the pandemic, he was basically kept at his father's hip for his main roster storylines. Whereas Dom wrestled most of his life in some form or fashion, messing around with family and friends and getting taught, at different points by Eddie Guerrero and obviously Rey Mysterio and other luchadors. He truly started training about a year before he appeared in WWE. He did that with Ray and Jay Lethal. I'm sure Aaliyah has done some work with her dad and others. It stands to reason she's not as prepared comparatively, and there's certainly no expectation that she works anywhere other than NXT in the short term, meaning she's not going to get called up to the main roster immediately, but I have no doubt she'll develop down there. They'll give her a shot on NXT. From that point forward, she's obviously going to have to earn a spot on the main roster. Mike Santana debuted on NXT last week. Of course, it was revealed this week that his name has officially been changed to Cruz Montana. Now, is this name an improvement? For me, it's not. It sounds like a name Sean Spencer would have come up with for Gus on Psych. Incredible show, by the way. If you've never watched it on USA Network back in the day, you should. I'm sure it's on Peacock right now. I digress. So is Cruz Montana a downgrade from Mike Santana? Yes. Is it an objectively bad name? Absolutely not. And you can make some fun puns with the Cruz part for catchphrases and finishers. What's most striking is how everyone just flips out whenever someone changes their name and joins WWE. And even when there's a justification for the name being chosen, not that any of these people need to justify anything to any of you or any of us who analyze the product. People still shit on the names, mostly for tribalistic reasons. Santana picked his name to honor his deceased father. Royce Keys is honoring, I believe, his mother. Blake Monroe is honoring her niece. None of it matters. What's disgusting is when people learn that there was a reason for these specific name choices, and they still shit on it for reason X, Y, or Z. I cannot stress enough how these people do not owe you explanations. But if they give you one, then just effing drop it at that point. If a talent says, I don't know why that's my name, WWE chose it for me, and the name sucks, go ahead and criticize it all you want. But that's not this. And that's not what WWE does. There's been so many people who have explained this. They ask for a list of first names and last names. That way they can mix and match options. They check which ones are trademarked, which ones aren't. They allow the talent to have preferences. Most of the time they get their preferences or something really close to it. Other times they don't, but it's still on their list. There's no name generator. They're not using AI to come up with wrestler names. The talent has involvement in choosing their names. Cruz Montana will be just fine. Just like Blake Monroe and Royce Keys are totally fine wrestling names. Mariah May was better. Powerhouse Hobbs and Will Hobbs were not. Okay? Sometimes the name's better, sometimes it's worse. Adam Copeland appeared in a surprise video package Wednesday night for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, a new promotion started in Canada by Scott D'Amore after he was jettisoned from TNA. They had teased a massive surprise, and Copeland seemingly wrestling for a promotion this small is undoubtedly a huge deal. Congratulations to them for that pull. Now, MLP is working alongside AEW to a degree, I believe. They're on the My AEW streaming service deal, and that should help them in the short term at least. The first event took place in October last year. They started airing a weekly show called MLP Mayhem, I want to say, on TSN in Canada, which is a huge deal. A variety of known names are listed on the roster, though they're not really full-timers on the roster. Andrade El Idolo, the Good Brothers, Grizzled Young Veterans, Josh Alexander, who's the champion, I believe he's injured, Mascara Dorada, Mike Bailey, Priscilla Kelly, Shotzi Blackheart. So clearly they have a talent arrangement with AEW in addition to working with independent names. As far as whether we will cover MLP here, look, honestly, I'm already stretched thin. I breeze through TNA a month at a time and barely pay attention to Evolve anymore. And this is the football off season. I've been wanting to watch MLW, but I don't really have any time, and those shows are pretty delayed by the time they get posted wherever they get posted. And since I don't have my AEW and I'm not going to be paying for it, I'm not sure if there's a way for me to watch MLP otherwise. If anyone listening lives in Canada, you get TSN, and there's a way that I can download the app and get access through my VPN. I would love to check it out. We'll do our best to cover what happens with Copeland for now. Everything else, we will see. And finally, one topic I forgot to cover on the AEW Redemption Analysis podcast. I saw a clip going around of the post-show press conference, and it was one of the most embarrassing displays I have ever seen. Not from AEW, not from Tony Khan. They did nothing wrong. But from the gathered media. Khan answered a question about honoring the history of professional wrestling with AEW. And we do joke and criticize sometimes how they try to co-opt wrestling history as theirs when it's actually not. But he was given credit for doing that and honoring the past, which is cool. And I want you to listen to this end of an answer and the response to it.
So thank you for asking. And I love being able to honor the history of professional wrestling here in AEW anytime we can do that. Thank you. Oh, you don't have to do that. You never have to clap. You guys don't have to do the clap. You guys are the working media. You don't have to do that. No, I'm serious. No. It's like you're working media. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I respect what you do. Thank you.
I've been working in sports journalism for 20 years. The only time I have heard media clap at a press conference was when someone announced or addressed their retirement. That clip is so incredibly embarrassing and proof that these folks are not journalists by any definition of the term. Khan even going so far as telling them to stop clapping, begging them almost to stop clapping, and that way they can be seen as legitimate and unbiased, and then continuing to do so, it made this even more disgusting. Again, nothing Tony did wrong at all. So when you see reporting on AEW and you see the defense squad kind of leap into action whenever something bad or negative or borderline happens with the organization, remember that clip, because that shit right there is pathetic. What's not pathetic is how much we still have to cover here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And we're getting to it right now. As mentioned, starting with AAA, we will move into NXT, AEW, and TNA through the end of this episode. Make sure you stick around and listen for all of it. As I did mention before, though, there are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you so choose. But look, you really don't want to do that. You want to listen to the Silver King. Let's go ahead and get to AAA. We have 3 weeks to cover. We will first go over the prior 2 weeks merged together, and then after that, cover what happened Saturday, Everano de Escandalo, Summer of Scandal. Rey Mysterio backstage approached El Grande Americano, warning him about Los Perros del Mal, given their extensive history and legacy. He explained that Americano, being the biggest dog in the yard, means he's their top target, and he must have backup against them. He agreed as Dominic interrupted, blaming his father for Los Perros joining the territory and claiming he had the same mindset as Mega Champion. Therefore, he would have Americano's back, and he hoped he would be offered the same protection. Americano played it from like, I believe it when I'll see it. Later, Rey told Andrea, Americano's girlfriend, that he owed her a call to talk about AAA, the presumption there being that she would get hired back. The Americano-Dominic part was the first meaningful interaction they've had in what feels like months, so that was important. Then last week, Rey opened the show by welcoming Andrea to the ring, offering her a new higher-paying contract. She wore this silver-beaded dress that would have turned heads on any red carpet in the entire world, let alone a wrestling ring.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now! I'd be trying to get it in as much as possible, too.
Undoubted Hey Now championship contender. Going to have to make sure Vintage sees this before that title, gets defended next. She should have been part of the gauntlet last week, to be fair. We'll need to get her in the match soon. Andrea obviously accepted the new contract. Money Machine fought two jobbers, one of whom's name I can't even begin to try to pronounce, so that's why I'm not saying it. I believe the other side are freelance talents and not full-time on the AAA roster. Machine sure could have used a win, given they've been taking L's for a while despite being awesome, but the booking here did make sense. Carmen Petrovic again appeared atop the stage as a distraction before Los Perros attacked all four in the ring. Daga called out Americano while the guys held down and continued to attack Machine. Los Americanos joined their guy. They were immediately outnumbered 3-on-4 with the size disadvantage. As Americano was getting beaten 3-on-1 in the ring, I couldn't help but laugh at Humberto, who was wearing the longest, most ridiculous wallet chain I have seen in 30 years. You might have thought he was wearing a No Fear shirt to go with that chain. Dominic ultimately lived up to his word. He saved with a steel chair that chased Los Perros out of the ring. He did not touch any of them. Dom ultimately challenged for a tag team match where he would team with Americano, who did shake his hand, but still side-eyed him as the show ended. Slightly confused why the booking was not 4-on-4, considering the numbers work out, but it might be due to the obvious creative direction, what I thought was the obvious creative direction, Dom emerging as the leader of Los Perros this entire time. As we mentioned when they debuted, Daga, he's not a bad fit as leader. It can definitely work. He didn't seem strong enough in that role. You need a leader of a faction that is important to be a legitimate main event contender most of the time, especially if they're going to be the top faction in the company. Dom revealing himself in a top role, it would stack the deck against Americano for AAA Mania, and it would have given fans a reason to boo him as he normally gets cheered. With that show still 2 months away, there's plenty of time to build the match, set up the faction, create all the different match varieties you could come up with which I figured was why the 4-on-4 was being saved, because it would probably be 5-on-5. Los Americanos and 2 other guys against Los Perros. It was a hot end to the show. It set up the potential for 2 strong months of booking going into a huge event. Then last week, Perros del Mal got an introductory in-ring promo segment. They apparently could not retain the classic theme that fans really wanted to hear. The presentation was strong, though. Daga led it, saying AAA has become weak amid their absence, with everyone focused on becoming popular on social media rather than dangerous in the ring. He said Angel and Umberto were born to become stars, but they have been misused. He called Bronco Nima the most dangerous man in the industry. Carmen got hoots and hollers as Daga basically said, "Don't even look at her or I'm going to kill you." While he's one of the chosen, the last man Paraguayo's son confided in to carry the flag of the faction, Daga said they are not there to ask for opportunities or respect, but to become a nightmare for the promotion. He said they make the rules, and he accepted Dominic's challenge. It sounded like an exceedingly solid promo to me. The crowd did not react as much to it as I thought or expected them to, but I'm not over familiar with like how the Mexican crowd usually handles extended solo talking segments. It was important to have Daga address their formation, provide context for their positioning in AAA, and this got the job done to that end. Dominic and Americano, they distracted from the ramp as Los Americanos appeared on the announce table, leading to a 4-on-4 brawl that ended the show. You know I'm never fond of that, as it's like nonsensical unless a show has a hard out to just cut away from a brawl. The YouTube version does not. The Mexican version does air on Fox, so I'll at least allow it. Nice to see Los Americanos back. I had been wondering why they were absent for pretty much the entire prior month. Dragon Lee fought Jack Cartwheel and Mini Vikingo in a Cruiserweight #1 contendership. Commentary spent a lot of time putting Dragon over, and it was worthwhile because he was ridiculous in this match, as were the other two. The most insane spot was Dragon shotgun dropkicking Mini over the announce table. I yelled out loud seeing it live. After Dragon landed Style Splash on Cartwheel, Mini flew off the top with a 630 Phoenix Splash, covering only with his body for the shocking upset victory. Credit to AAA for getting behind an 18-year-old, 95-pound kid. There are athletic wrestlers doing incredible feats in Mexico and Japan. There is perhaps no one as individually spectacular as he has been over the last few months. Between the 630 Phoenix, his absurd Tornillo crucifix bomb, it's impossible to deny the way he rouses fans. He just needs to add like 40, 45 pounds to his frame to get taken seriously, because right now he is way too frail. Dragon didn't take the fall, which was important, and it does seem like WWE has legitimate plans for him. Unfortunately, he got injured. We'll talk more about that in a bit. 4 stars, A- for that match. Mini gave some lip to Dorian Roldan as he was walking backstage with Omos, heading to the ring for an announcement about the Latin American Championship being vacated by El Hijo del Vikingo due to a torn ACL. Of course, he is Mini Vikingo's older brother. Rodan said the title would stay in El Ojo, with Omos becoming champion. He blamed and threatened to sue Ray for sending Vikingo to SmackDown on NXT, where he got hurt. Ray got a huge reaction as usual, and he obviously refused to abide by the whims of a heel manager, demanding the title be handed over while going face to belly button with Omos. Damian Priest backstage at SmackDown cut a promo that was sent in saying he would go after the title. The segment over-delivered. I loved the interaction with Ray and Omos. Priest going after the title, of course, makes sense. Then last week, Ray announced a series of triple threat matches would create qualifiers for the vacant title, which will be decided in a 4 corners match at AAA Mania. The first 3 qualifiers were going to be La Parka, Mecha Wolf, and Dragon Lee. So I figured Dragon was going to come out of that, but again, he got injured. The second is El Fiscal, Cruz del Toro, and Psycho Clown. Not sure about this one. I figured Fiscal and Abismo Negro would be on Triple Mania. Clown is presently involved in that attack angle. I'll go with Fiscal for that one. Now the third match. Oh boy.
He don't want no water. He don't want no bread. All he wants is meat.
Omos, Damian Priest, Galeno. I know some of you don't watch AAA and therefore you don't know about Galeno. This has a chance to be a legitimate contender for big meaty match of the year in the 2026 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties.
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
I know they're going to have to contend with Obafemi, Brock Lesnar 1 and possibly 3 inside Hell in a Cell. I get it. I'm just saying this is going to be a sneaky contender. Watch out for that match. Priest will almost certainly come out of it. Omos and Galeno are going to collide one-on-one at Triple Mania. So again, first match, didn't know, thought it was going to be Dragon. Then Fiscal and Priest, I figured, would win the other 2. Solid start. Dr. Wagner Tresero, Abismo Negro, and Tejano Jr. made up the final qualifier, which took place immediately after Ray's announcement. I'll take this opportunity to state something I have been meaning to say for months. Wagner has a legitimate top-tier entrance theme in all of wrestling. Not AAA, not WWE, all of wrestling in 2026. I digress. Abismo brought out Brass Knuckles trying to tag Wagner, but instead hitting Tejano. Wagner ultimately capitalized with Wagner driver to advance, 3.75 stars B+. And lastly, La Hiedra y Laredo Kid defeated Fabi Apache y Joaquin Wilde in a number one contendership for the mixed tag team titles. Lola Vice and Mr. Iguana had been confronted by the eventual winners before the match backstage, which gave away the result. No reason the order of operations could not have been flipped here. The match was great. Apache straight kicked Laredo in the head, which distracted her long enough for Hiedra to win with a cutter. This was a really cool match for Wilde specifically, who grew up idolizing Fabi's father, Gran Apache, and he trained in Mexico. I don't know if he trained under him or not, maybe just his school. So it was full circle for him. Hiedra y Laredo worked well together, and when this show ended, I said, you know what? I'd actually like to see them flip the titles onto them. So that brings us to this week's AAA show, Verano de Escandalo. Again, Summer of Scandal, week 1. This was live. I believe it's a 3-week show. The others were taped. The venue here was sick. The camera work was not. Ray opened the show set to share good news, but he got interrupted by Dorian and Omos, who threatened him with consequences if he did not give them back the Latin American title. Ray stood 10 toes down, even as Omos threatened. This was basically an identical segment to what we just discussed. It didn't advance the story, and it was therefore an odd choice as a kickoff. Later, in a fake press conference he holds weekly, Ray announced Penta will show up live at a forthcoming show to discuss Los Perros. He also seemed to indicate that main roster superstars would be on the Worlds Collide show, which we assumed. CM Punk will almost certainly be there, if not wrestling. It's a Chicago show at Allstate Arena, and he's the biggest name in Chicago. It was announced earlier Saturday that Dragon did tear a ligament in his thumb, and he's been pulled from the tournament. So Ray shared that Lince Dorado will take his place. Solid replacement. Unfortunate for Dragon, who's been surging both on AAA and Raw over the last few weeks. So that makes it Dorado, La Parka, and Mecha Wolf. And out of that group, I mean, the question is, I don't know if La Parka was originally scheduled to maybe team with Mr. Iguana and go after the tag team titles. That would make a lot of sense. If that's going to be the plan, then I would actually have Lince winning this match. If not, then La Parka would certainly be the bigger star for that big match. Dom commiserated with Americano backstage to ensure they're on the same page against the dangerous Perros. Americano forced Dom to look at him and confirm he's got his back and that they were still Los Gringos Locos. Dom answered in the affirmative, saying they're not only friends, but he wants to preserve what's going to be the biggest match in AAA history. As Dom departed, Damien, a former member of Los Perros, who for context is 65 years old, he threatened Americano before leaving the scene. Damien was a fun, unexpected surprise. Some of you may know him from WCW. The segment seemed to beat viewers over the head with the idea that Dom would screw Americano despite the platitudes he shared. It came across as unnecessary, a little bit too much toward that end. By the way, Dom was wearing a shirt with Eddie Guerrero holding him as a child, blonde tips and all. That was really cool. So we had Los Gringos Locos against Los Perros de Mal. This was obviously the main event. Daga's partner was a mystery until Angel walked out with him, getting his Garza last name back. Ray said on commentary that Dom is familiar with Los Perros, just given how he came up in wrestling. There was a really cool spot I have not seen before where Americano was hitting back while taking mounted punches in the corner. He had a double flying blockbuster later on a hot tag before Dom came back in for Three Amigos with an assist on Tresero. Superplex and Frog Splash team up led to a broken fall when the referee inadvertently got knocked out. Dom ran in to hit a 619 on Angel with Americano landing his flying headbutt, but no one was there to count. Dom pulled a metal plate out for Americano to load his mask, but Los Perros pulled him off the apron and destroyed him ringside into the steel steps in the ring post. Angel took advantage of a gory setup into a GTS-style knee for a late fall attempt. Los Americanos evened the sides with kendo sticks, and then Bravo climbed and leapt 15 feet off a metal truss to splash a bunch of dudes ringside. Meanwhile, Angel kicked out of an air raid crash for a false finish. Carmen then showed up as Bronco respawned for a double choke slam through the announce table. Americano took him out with a finisher, then kicked out of everything Angel delivered, including a Daga-assisted missile dropkick German suplex. Americano overcame a double team as Dom finally respawned from his ringside attack, pulling his hand away on a desperation tag and inching his way down the steps. There was an incredible camera angle of Los Perros, all rising simultaneously behind Americano inside and outside of the ring. Daga landing a seesaw coup de grace to get the win. Counter to expectations, Dom is neither the leader nor a member of Los Perros. He simply took advantage of their presence to gain an advantage on Americano and knock him down a peg going into their Triple Mania match. That was disappointing at first. it did not meet my booking assumption. It would have been exciting for Dom to lead that faction. But again, that was only my assumption. It was my initial hope. The reason Dom is not leading Los Perros was revealed moments later, as he was met on stage by Dorian and Omos, so it appears he is the new leader of El Ojo, with Vikingo sidelined for at least 9 months. I wonder whether it would have been more effective to utilize Omos at some point in the segment. He feigns like he's going to interfere. It looks like Dom is going to stand up to him. Then Dom turns around, low blows Americano, and joins. The reveal was a bit meh the way they did it after the fact. That scenario could have improved it. But again, that's just my preference. This was a terrific pivot that shocked everyone watching, and it makes far more sense for Dom to lead El Ojo than Los Perros in retrospect, especially since he first took Vikingo's title and now he's taking his faction. When Vikingo returns, AAA should be able to book him as a babyface again, which was the plan when WWE took over the company, but that got thwarted by fan revolt for the firing of Alberto Del Rio. This was a tremendous match in front of a hot crowd with some fun sequences and a few surprising false finishes. Americano right now is basically booked like an amalgamation of Hulk Hogan, John Cena, and NXT Johnny Wrestling. It is crazy to witness. Garza wrestled incredibly well. It is insane to me that WWE could not figure out a way to make money from two good-looking Mexican guys who speak English, show in-ring personality, and can go between the bells. It's awesome to see him get such a consistently strong reaction. Los Perros got a huge win. Perhaps most importantly, Dom is now a legitimately despicable heel, as opposed to a tweener who just regularly got positive crowd reactions. They figured out how to get him fully booed. Plus, Americano is now fighting a war on two fronts, surely in need of reinforcements between now and Triple Mania. I wonder who might be able to help him. Perhaps someone who is ready, willing, and there was also a top-tier commentary line to close this episode, something like, Dom is not aligned with Los Perros. He's just an asshole. Oh, and Dom was actually honest in his aforementioned backstage segment. He was not with Los Perros. So it turns out they did not hit us over the head with the expected booking, though, of course, they did still hit us over the head with the idea that he was going to go fuller heel and join a faction, which he did. Mixed Tag Team Championship was on the line. Lola Vice y Mr. Iguana against Hiedra y Laredo. Solid recap package aired before this for those unfamiliar with how interconnected these parties have been. Laredo had Lucha Punisher gear, which was sick. He had a 450 before perhaps the worst count I have ever seen from a wrestling referee. Something must have happened in a conversation with Gorilla Position. Maybe Iguana said he got the wind knocked out of him or something. It was extremely weird. Iguana Rana landed as a tope outside as Lola got pushed into the ropes neck first, bouncing backward, only to eat Hiedra's equivalent of Jaded for the title change. This was the right move to freshen up the division and pay off Hiedra's story of testing multiple partners until she found one who could win. It was also likely an indicator that Vice is getting some level of a call-up or a promotion, improving her station in WWE as a whole. The mixed tag match was probably a B-. The main event, I'm just realizing I forgot to give a grade for that. I'll say 4 stars A- due to the interference and the referee getting knocked down and all that. It was on its way to a full-fledged A, maybe even a 4.5, but I do need to downgrade it a little bit. It was a 21-minute main event, which of course is what we love to see. AAA has basically emerged as the most consistent weekly wrestling show right now, and it's not that close. When Raw is at its absolute best, it compares, but it's not consistent like it used to be last year, and it hasn't reached that high level in months. AAA shits on SmackDown, Dynamite, certainly Collision, and TNA. NXT, for me, it exists in its own world because it is consistent, but it's obviously developmental, so it's a different level of consistency. But this show kicked ass. It is free on YouTube. If you use a VPN, you can sign into Algeria and skip all the commercials. I mean, you need to watch this. That's as far as I can go in telling you and putting something over. Like, you should be watching AAA weekly. And even if it's not something you want to sit down and, spend a lot of time doing, if you take a train, if you are on the toilet, whatever, you can pull this show up and knock out 40 minutes in 1 or 2, sittings, depending what you're doing and where you're doing it. So watch AAA. That is the Silver King's, I don't want to say promise, but that is my demand almost for all of you. At least give it a shot. And if you don't like it, then of course you can definitely stop. Now we have a ton of show left, plenty to cover. I do need to remind you at this juncture here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction, audio whenever something major happens on a tentpole wrestling television show in the United States. You will have one of these immediately after SmackDown on Friday, leading into SummerSlam. Also, every Friday, exclusive news, analysis, editorial update posts written by the Silver King. It's extra content for you. It's a few shekels for us as we try to pay our bills and keep this show on the air. Please continue supporting buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, let's move over to NXT. Grayson Waller shocked everyone by storming into the ring at the cold open of NXT, grabbing a mic and cutting a work shoot promo for more than 10 minutes to start the show. Rather than waste time reframing his words as my own, I have gone through the effort to truncate his promo by 2/3 for review purposes. So rather, again, than me repeat all of this, here's the gist of what Waller had to say, and it's really not that short. I want you to get the full feeling of the promo he delivered here.
Hey, WWE, you want to get unreal? Let's get unreal, because Grayson Waller has a live microphone finally. But either way, the last 2 years of my career have been an absolute embarrassment, and I'm man enough to admit it. I spent a year carrying 240 pounds of idiot on my back, making him relevant again. So much so that these people actually chanted his name. Never before, never since, but I don't care how many bells and whistles you give him. At the end of the day, that Marty Jannetty is still allergic to the microphone. It gets worse. The last year of my career, I pretended I was at a funeral. And I committed to the bit. I wore the silly hat. I climbed to the top of every arena in this country. And on a live microphone, I told the world just how good someone else was. And the ironic thing is, I was dressed for a funeral, but the only thing dying was my career. But it's a new day. And I got demons. And in order to get where I should be, I need to conquer some demons. And the one that's been keeping me awake at night for a very long time is the NXT Championship. Because you guys know it, that championship used to mean something. It used to represent the best wrestler in the world. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Seth Rollins, Johnny Gargano. Even recently, Braun, Mello, Trick Oba, they get to the main roster and the red carpet gets rolled out. They get treated like gods because that title represents the future of the industry. But I never had it. So I get treated like a Netflix ad break comedy act. Honestly, who's going to stop me? Cruz Montana? I love the new name, by the way. It's great. But what really frustrates me is Cruz walks in like he's going to challenge for the NXT title straight away. Because he was the top guy in TNA. It ain't 2005, lad. Being the top guy in TNA is like being the best basketball player at the local YMCA. I'm not impressed. What's wrong? Sean wants me to... Yeah? You tell Sean to tune up the band if he has a problem with what I'm saying. You going to go to commercial? It's too early. Hey, you know what? Sean, why don't you send out one of your guys? I have a message for the NXT roster. Hey guys, get off your phone. I know you're probably filming a TikTok. Maybe watch the show and learn something. Because I just walked in your house. I didn't even wipe my feet. And everything I'm about to say, I mean with the utmost disrespect. The NXT male roster is soft. You're lazy. You're complacent. You're happy to be here. I know you fat flops will love this one. The women of NXT are running laps around you. Yet still, 90% of you think you should get called up tomorrow. But here's the secret, ladies and gentlemen. I look at that roster, maybe 10%'s ready. They're all women. Because you got world-class athletes back there. I see at the tryout all the passion and energy, and then you come here and you're fine with putting WWE superstar in your Instagram bio so you can play wrestler for 6 months, impress some mediocre girls in downtown Orlando, and spend all your time in medical. And then you have the independent talent. My people, I love independent wrestlers, and you come here and you do things in this ring that no one else can do. How good are they? But then you put a microphone in their hands and all the energy gets sucked out of the room because you're a bunch of charisma vacuums. And I know you're all kind of looking over at Sean right now, seeing how he's freaking out in the headset. But deep down inside, HBK's smiling because I'm finally telling the truth. This men's division has been for the taking for months. Hey, shut up. I don't need your support. I'm cooking right now. Let me cook. Because unfortunately, for that embarrassment of a roster, I'm starting to remember who Grayson Waller is. I'm the most underrated guy on this roster. I'm the all-round pound for pound best. I don't need a mic. You don't want to give me an opportunity, WWE? I just took one. Consider your cages rattled.
Okay, a little stumble there at the end, but as a wise man once said, I believe I had that.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
How do you like that, huh?
I like it a lot, Bailey. I like it a lot. I've only been calling for Waller to move down to NXT for, 6 months, the better part of a year? This was precisely why. Better for him to be a big fish in a small pond than the alternative, especially considering he has long needed a top-down refresh of his character and gimmick, getting rid of the dumb, played-out elements that I pinged all the way back when he debuted during NXT 2.0. Waller was shot out of a cannon here, and the passion mixed with the work-shoot style of the promo not only made it memorable, but an easy top 5 effort of 2026. Maybe a contender for promo of the year when all is said and done. I already played the specific points he made that particularly popped me, so I won't reiterate all of them. But what was so impressive is how much he accomplished in such a relatively short period of time. He delivered haymakers to his main roster booking, shitting on Austin Theory and the creative around his alignment with New Day. He talked about wasting years when he should have been better utilized. And then he properly tore apart not only the NXT men's division, but the complacency and attitude of the younger generation in the Performance Center. Because even though Grayson Waller is new to WWE, the dude's not young. And he did all of this while making it clear he was not just there to complain, he was there to win the NXT title, which he valued for reasons explained. The shot at TNA was terrific. Anyone decrying that as burying another promotion somehow does not realize this was a worked promo, and they probably don't have the same energy for what has happened to New Japan, CMLL, and Stardom on AEW TV. The call out of Shawn Michaels added a realism to the promo that took it to the next level. The crowd supporting him throughout was the cherry on top as he was spitting nothing but facts. As someone else might say, tell him when he's telling lies, particularly about the women running laps around the men and being the only thing really worth watching on NXT right now. The only people who could actually get called up to the main roster out of people who are in NXT right now. It's one thing for someone like me to say it. It is quite another for an established guy who has appeared at WrestleMania and on national television and worked on that brand to say it. And that's why it coming out of Waller's mouth made it so different. Don't forget, this is a guy who got put over shortly after he debuted on the main roster by John Cena and Edge. And then they had him in the tag team with Austin Theory. They won the titles at WrestleMania in the ladder match that we correctly predicted, and it was awesome. The booking was really, really smart the way they did it. And then they just completely dropped the ball. They never paid off the Theory feud. They put him with New Day. That was dead in the water when it started. And now you have him in NXT and New Day out of the company, most likely in AEW pretty soon. Now, there is supposed to be an Australian contingent coming to NXT, I believe in the coming weeks or months. Perhaps Waller will wind up leading them. Combined with last week's debut, Waller is the shot in the arm that this men's main event scene needed sorely. He knocked the door down. He trashed the locker room. He trashed the new signee by proxy, mentioning TNA. And he proved himself right that everyone there was 20-ply because none of them confronted him. CM Punk, Bayley, and John Cena, by the way, all shouted out Waller after the show. They all seemingly did it on their own, just reacting to what they saw. It did not come across as one of those canned put-overs where you can tell the language was like approved by WWE and sent over to them to send as messages. These were just their own social media accounts, and they shouted him out, which was really cool. Cruz Montana crossed paths with Waller as the former entered and the latter exited the arena during the ensuing segment. Montana then dapped up Noam Dar and Romeo Moreno, who welcomed him to the brand. Saquon Sugars came through, putting over the tag team for scrapping with him, even though they lost. Montana got in his face, considering their past Dark State issues, but Saquon said he's a changed man, and he asked him for an allowance to take care of Dark State before they have any issues. Kalani Jordan then walked through, cautioning Cruz about signing his NXT contract because it's a work environment that has screwed her over time and again, and she's never been given a shot to win the NXT championship. He walked away with her back turned. Vanity Project backstage expressed anger at Robert Stone for creating contenders for their tag team championships. Jackson Drake focused on Bourne, demanding a North American title opportunity sooner than later. Then Keanu Carver interrupted with Michael Lockwood looking him up and down. He calmly asked Stone for a third match against DK Prosper next week. He shook his hand, which was meant to be unsettling because it was the antithesis of his character to this point. Stone then received 2 different phone calls from Waller over separate segments demanding he return to the building. We'll talk more about the Waller part of this in a moment. Montana getting integrated with the roster, recalling some of his few connections. That was a nice touch, as we were able to see him multiple times before he eventually got this big segment, or his big segment, I should say, at the end of the show. Jordan was great here. Her best acting work perhaps ever in NXT. Leaning into this complainer gimmick is better than her trying to put on a pouty face and play heel. And it's always great when the men and women interact. Seeing Carver do an entire 180 with his personality, that was relatively intriguing. I want to see more next week before we put that over, though. Montana got the show's main event segment with a new entrance theme that was not the return of the realist, but it had a similar vibe with full lyrics. And it's possible this was made by the same artist. It sounded like it was called Undefeated. He opened by saying, "These are words I never thought I'd say. Cruz Montana is officially a WWE superstar." Yeah, man, I don't think anyone believed someone would say those specific words. Montana reestablished his Hard Knock New York background for the new audience, saying he avoided rock bottom by choosing to overcome all the adversity in his life and make his daughter proud, proving that he was better than being held down as a tag team wrestler. He sent love to TNA for giving him an opportunity, promising his past will not dictate his future, and he said he's not in NXT to fill a spot, but to take a spot. Montana called out Waller for delivering a cute promo, saying he was prepared to do his talking with physicality. Tony D'Angelo interrupted, saying plenty of wrestlers have come through with similar goals, and while he believes Cruz, he can get to the top of the brand one day, the spot he and Kangaroo Jack currently want is taken. He'll never be NXT champion. As they went face-to-face, Waller returned through the crowd to push them into each other. He ultimately ducked a discus lariat, with Montana inadvertently drilling D'Angelo to end the show with the best individual night for the men since the call-ups, being the cherry on top of this episode. The one change I would have made, I would have stuck a camera in Waller's face at multiple points throughout the night. He never should have left the building. Ideally, NXT would have come back from commercial to Waller being dressed down in gorilla position by Sean, who then demands he go see Stone. Then he gets into it with Stone, is told they'll address him as a group after the show. He breaks containment, gets by security, attacks these guys. That is so much more compelling, and it's more logical that he would have stuck around, especially after calling out Michaels during his promo. But I digress. Excellent promo from Montana. Nothing we have not heard from him before, those of us who have followed his singles career in TNA, but he was pitch perfect, reiterating his personal story, his goals, all of this for a new full-time audience. The repackaging feels unnecessary, but it's so damn similar. It's really tough to complain that much. I'd rather save that energy for repackages that are actually bad or frustrating for one reason or another. D'Angelo was serviceable in his retort, but anyone watching was surely more enthused by the idea of Montana or Waller becoming champion. They were operating on an entirely different level when it comes to energy, charisma, believability. I'm not sure what NXT can do with D'Angelo going forward, but right now he's on a road to nowhere with this gimmick. Adding Montana and Waller to this men's division, it's a shot in the arm it's so badly needed, and really one or two more tentpole talents would be great. But even if it's just those two, plus a couple people leveling up and sugars, suddenly these are matches and storylines you actually want to see the men compete in. Great job by all here. Lola Vice led a promo package covering her success in NXT Underground, telling Kendall Gray she has no idea what it's like to be knocked out, and that she's about to go against a far more experienced woman who owned her craft in AAA. Vice said she now has a chip on her shoulder, and she's ready to prove an amateur wrestler cannot compete with a mixed martial artist in the underground, where she will have a clear advantage. I literally cannot remember the last time a woman on the main roster got that much time to lead a video package ahead of a huge match. Maybe Asuka and Io in the feud, that they ended up concluding at Backlash. They did get a lot of time in pre-match packages because of the translation and stuff, but someone who spoke English the entire time, I can't remember them getting a package that long. This was maybe, I'd say, twice as long as what Io Sky got on Raw. And Lola did quite well here, likely because she was given multiple takes to get it right. She also speaks better when she's calm and collected rather than juiced up in the ring. But was it still kind of robotic and wooden and canned? It was. Gray got her own promo package, which showed her training with her father and Julius Creed on a wrestling mat. Creed put her over for having it literally 5 times. He kept saying Kendall Gray has it. And by the way, don't forget, Kendall Gray has it. Gray credited him for getting her a spot in WWE. It was, again, extremely robotic from Kendall, who just at this point, she needs to take acting lessons. That's not a shot at her. It's something easy that she can do to accelerate her improvement on the mic and make herself a no doubt future main eventer in WWE. Go ahead and ask Becky Lynch how helpful doing acting and improv classes can be. Even with the jagged promo, this was a realistic and attractive package. Combined, it was super strong promotion for next week's big match and way, way better than what Liv Morgan and Io got for SummerSlam. Think about that. A TV match largely being used to write off Lola got a better go-home package than Liv and Io, the top women's match at WWE's second biggest show of the entire year. Absolutely pathetic. Miles Bourne and Tavian Heights were pissed off backstage hearing what Waller had to say in the opening segment, claiming they were the faces of the brand. Mason Rook interrupted, dressed in regular clothes with his hair completely brown, no more mullet either, looked so much better. He was similarly angry over Waller's promo, while also sick and tired of other people dissing the NXT men's division, planning to get hands on Cam Hendricks before the night was out. This was all a prelude to the scheduled title match. North American title on the line, Bourne against Hendricks. Continuing what I said last week, Hendricks is starting to win me over. The guy was acting an ass during his entrance and the ring announce. He was basically doing like NPC movements in the background while Bourne was still being announced. Then he shoved his face into the close-up camera shot when it focused on the strap. That way you only saw the title in his face. He's still being pushed too hard too soon, but from a personality standpoint, the guy clearly has legitimate charisma. Unfortunately, the match was clunky as expected because Hendricks is extremely green. He nearly spiked Bourne's head on the canvas, countering a tope suicida. Tavian had to physically stop Mason from interfering as Cam landed his Showtime kick for a false finish. Miles ultimately flipped out of another move and hit Bourne again on the landing to retain the title. Heights then gave Rook free entry into the ringside area for a brawl, but when he celebrated with Bourne, Vanity Project attacked 3-on-2. The faces overcame the disadvantage and stood tall to end this segment. The bit with Heights and Rook was really fun, and the post-match brawl did a great job setting up a pair of notable matches next week. Hopefully, Hendricks can now take a huge step backwards down to the low card on this brand because he has now proven in 2 matches he is not ready to be anything more than a comedy character who eats pins. He should have said something about his health meter when this ended. That would have been really funny. Bourne's lack of true development is seriously concerning. He is stuck in a rut. The babyface gimmick doesn't work well. There's not much to latch on to. He's a generic personality, generic moveset. He is badly in need of a refresh, and I just don't see one coming anytime soon. Lizzie Rain fought Izzy Dame. This match opened on fire from the bell. Dame hit one of those over-the-side backbreakers plus a leaping code breaker off the middle rope. Rain tagged her with a discus forearm, then countered a discus lariat with a boot, only to get caught on a springboard for Blue Thunderbomb that needed a little bit more rotation. Izzy tackled Lizzie through the ropes, only to get reversed into the steel steps before taking a Death Valley driver that Vic Joseph said looked like an air raid crash. It was not, but it was probably a mix between the two moves. Booker T called it Rock the Mic, which is a great move name that should stick. Dame answered with a perfect, and I mean perfect, crucifix bomb for a false finish. Rain responded with a running uppercut before Nico Vance distracted and grabbed her arm. Sean Spears appeared from underneath the hood to threaten with a chair, distracting Izzy enough for Lizzie to hit Thunderstruck and get the win. Not entirely sure what happened, but Dame wrestled the second half of this match with one of her furry legs like having fallen off her knee down to her foot. So she was battling a wardrobe malfunction, but still wrestling incredibly well. The double distraction finish was unfortunate because they were on their way to completing something tremendous, but it was still the match of the night when all was said and done. 3.75 stars B+. As a newer talent, Rain needed the victory more, and she should be in some type of title picture after this. Rain cut a promo backstage that also served as a KFC ad, saying she was keeping an eye on the Underground match next week, hoping to get a title bout on the back end. Dame then snapped at Callie Armstrong, who was complaining about not getting more opportunities. Jordan came through, continuing her bitch fit, telling both that she'll be the next champion. Reina Volcan walked through, diminishing all 3 of them, saying the division doesn't rebuild, it just reloads. Nice way to feature the next group of women who are going to be heavily focused upon in the coming months and years, frankly. At the same time, Callie and Lonnie, they need something else to do besides constantly complaining and talking about what they deserve, especially Armstrong. She just got a title match. Can we develop a real feud for this woman, please? Zarya and Ren Sinclair both confronted Stone, wondering who were their respective number 1 contenders. It got heated between them, from Sinclair referencing Sol Ruca, the last double champion, suggesting she challenge for the North American title. Instead, Stone decided Zarya would challenge for the speed strap, and if Ren wins, then she will get a North American title opportunity. Now, this would be a solid way to utilize the time limit stipulation. You have Sinclair escape with the title without beating Zarya, which absolutely should not happen, and then she gets a North American title match. But really, this should just be Sinclair getting an opportunity at the bigger strap. The speed title means nothing. She's more qualified than basically any other woman in the division, maybe other than Reign at this juncture. Zarya's dismissiveness of the speed title was refreshing, but I'm sure nothing's going to come of it because they're still showing it on TV. Meanwhile, Lexis King is the men's speed champion. He doesn't do shit. So, what is the point of these titles? Can we please end the speed experiment? WWE speed is not going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Jada Parker and Thea Hale celebrated their success from last week with Jada saying a dub is a dub in her book before thanking Thea for having her back. Parker talked about Natty making her feel lonely over the last couple of months with Hale proving her wrong. Thea then informed Stone, booked them in a tag team match next week, and when Jada immediately accepted, Thea was over the moon, hugging her and everything. I'm sorry.
No, don't like that.
A dub is not a dub. Not when a veteran is calling you a 20-ply and you beat her with a thrown-in towel, not a pinfall, submission, or knockout. That is a terrible perspective for Parker. She should have instead shared that she was happy to get the win, but she feels unfulfilled by it. The tag team match could then be a step in her feeling better if she doubles up, but then she needs a match against Natty. That way she can actually get the win and prove that she's not soft. Other than that, it was a cute segment. I did not expect to like babyface Jada as much as I did. Maybe there's something to it.
I think you may have something here.
Out the Mud fought Birthright. Los Garza interrupted OTM backstage, telling Bronco that they got his back no matter where he goes. Lucian Price gave them the side eye as OTM left for the match. Stacks, got straight chucked out of the ring right into the rest of his faction in the early going. Uriah Connors landed a perfect swanton bomb in the middle of the ring. Nima answered with a flying stomp to the chest. Los Perros walked out during Price's hot tag, which distracted Nima as he tried to separate them from Birthright. That left Price exposed to take their finisher and the L. He had one of the best post-pinfall sells I have seen in a long time. The dude looked like he was knocked for a loop. It was a needed win for Birthright. Bronco looked stupid as hell, leaving his partner in the lurch to get involved in something that wasn't impacting the match. Nima tried to dap up Price after the bell with Los Perros staring Lucian down, so this will clearly continue. Bronco definitely has a stronger future with Los Perros in AAA. It would be unfortunate to see Lucian be left by the wayside without him. He doesn't have the game to work singles, so I don't exactly know where they're going with all of this. Shiloh Hill fought Tristan Angels. This was rather boilerplate for a while until Angels destroyed Hill into the furniture outside. Shiloh moved as Tristan attempted a knee drop into the steel steps, instead powerbombing him into the announce table. Angels got caught attempting to use the ropes for leverage on an O'Connor roll. Hill moved him into the ropes for an avalanche version of his Thunderbreaker finisher, and he got the win. This kicked the shit out of their Great American Bash match, despite not much happening for the first half. Shiloh was the appropriate winner given his ceiling is much higher, and hopefully this can now be considered over. Hill was also rocking what appeared to be a permanent tooth. He did not run any theatrics with removing a retainer, so it looks like that ridiculous part of his gimmick is officially buried. Fingers crossed.
That's cool.
And that wraps up NXT this week. It was a much heavier episode on the men's side than the women's side, which it's strange to say, but it was a breath of fresh air because it actually delivered. Like, the men were focused on throughout the entire episode, and they made it worthwhile. And it was largely because of Waller and Montana. I mean, let's just be honest about what we saw here. But they developed Lola and Kendall real nice for next week. That NXT Underground match should be Vice's last. Gray is expected, of course, to retain the title and be the first one to beat her in the Underground. And then we have a lot of momentum for Lizzie Reigns, some stuff percolating with Jada Parker and Thea Hale. I mean, this women's division is still continuing to roll, but it's the men's division that finally seems to be getting back on track. Let's flip the page to AEW. First of all, how effing long is Dynamite these days? That shit on Wednesday went beyond 2.5 hours. I wouldn't mind if it was the only show of the week. How about putting some of that stuff on Collision so it's not completely worthless? Especially this week when it's airing live on Thursday. Do we really need more than 4.5 hours of wrestling in 2 days? Do you really have the creative to offer that much content? Spoiler alert, no. Let's get to the breakdown. In terms of storyline relevant matches this week, combining the go-home Collision with Dynamite, 5 of 13 fit the billing, 39%. One of those was generous. The most significant issue was that there were 4 title matches booked on Dynamite immediately after a pay-per-view. Only one of them made a shred of sense. Jack Perry, Nick Wayne, and Commander, all of whom lost in the number 1 contendership ladder match at Redemption, received championship opportunities on Dynamite. So they lost the number 1 contendership and then were made number 1 contenders for different titles. That is a booking abomination. Persephone also received a title match completely undeserved out of nowhere. We'll cover that more specifically in a bit. The only one that was properly built was the main event. And again, we'll talk about that soon. But as far as I was concerned, regardless of how solid the work rate might be bell to bell, random title matches to try and pop a rating, because we have 4 title matches on Dynamite, and having undeserved contenders get those opportunities, that is not wrestling that excites the Silver King. Now, this did excite the Silver King. Well, maybe not this, but something that followed. Dynamite opened with Will Ospreay storming into the arena wearing a Billy Goat shirt, as he has many times before. But for the first time, I got to thinking, bruv, how are you calling yourself the GOAT if your entire gimmick is that you have not climbed the mountain in AEW and you're not able to pull the trigger when you get there? How could you possibly be the GOAT? Remember that, because we'll come back to it. Anyway, Ospreay walks into some tunnel and he gets confronted by nearly the entire Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli missing for some reason, never explained. And I wanted to start snapping my fingers like it was West Side Story. Pac looked absolutely ridiculous, mean mugging. Daniel Garcia was wearing a wife beater looking like he was a Jersey Shore cast member. Garcia tried to say something to him. Ospreay hit him across the face with a forearm. And then Jon Moxley had to hold Pac back from attacking him like an animal. Mox half-threatened Ospreay, who returned to the Death Riders patch, and they all stared him down as he walked right through them. Hangman Page then confronted him looking like he was leaving. He had a suitcase in hand, walking out of the building. He said he wouldn't stick his nose in Will's business, given he's not about the AEW title life, but he offered a helping hand if needed. Ospreay said he can't trust Hangman because he can't trust Kenny Omega, and everyone is against him. Page stopped him from leaving, gassing him up for the title match. Hangman looked better here from an aesthetic standpoint than he has in a while. It was a strong show open from the standpoint that it set the stage for the rest of the episode, but it was also incredibly heavy-handed, and the visuals I discussed a moment ago were absolutely laughable. On Dynamite, Mox retained the Continental title over Commander. There was an all-time dumb spot in this match where Mox slid into the ring on his chest, turned over, waited nearly 5 seconds, and then Commander hit him with a 450. If Mox had slid into the ring and not turned over, it would have been great. Instead,
so dumb.
Mox ultimately avoided a high-risk hitting stomp, Death Rider, and a Bulldog choke for the tap out. Later outside, Mox was getting an elbow back massage by Shafir as the Riders accepted a challenge for a collision. Garcia then called out Ospreay for running from the grind his entire career, saying it's hard to get into the Riders, but even harder to get out. In what way, Danny? By fighting you and kicking your ass in a 17-minute match that should go 7 minutes? He's already out. He said he was done. He gave you the patch. You let him walk by. You had a 4-on-1 advantage. Why didn't you beat the shit out of him in the tunnel? Mox then said the Continental title is what wrestling is supposed to be about. He said backstage is buzzing about this Continental Cup. It's being talked about everywhere. But he was ready for the fire to be brought to him no matter who he needs to defend against. What the hell is the Continental Cup? Where and when has it been discussed? Why are they doing another tournament when the Continental Classic already exists? Are you going to do a Continental Cup final at All In, where you also have a casino gauntlet and the winner of the Owen fighting the champion in the main event? What are we doing here, man? I swear, this shit is never ending to this point. Mox was over the top here. He may have been missing a tooth. Something was going on with his mouth. This was odd. The main event of Dynamite is where this finally came together. It was a 15-minute confrontation between Omega looking dapper like a true champion wearing a suit, and Ospreay looking like a child in his kit top and his sweatpants tucked into his socks. Omega said he's always put their friendship before the belt, and it gives him joy to see Ospreay successful, but it cut him deep when Will claimed Kenny gave up on himself, which clearly wasn't true, because he's the AEW champion. Omega was further bothered that Ospreay didn't listen to his warnings about Mox, especially now that it's blown up in his face. I mean, really, by now, nothing has blown up in his face. Ospreay trained, joined, and left, and nothing happened to him. I digress. Ospreay admitted he came back too early from his neck injury, wanting revenge, and said when he failed, he had no friends to turn to, considering Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis turned heel. Of course, this was illogical, considering Omega would have been there for him, which Kenny said off mic. So Will explained he turned to Mox because he gave him new life. He didn't look at him like the guy who broke his neck, but the guy who won a bunch of titles in AEW. He said he liked being in the Riders because he had killers watching his back, and he understands why they're so protective over AEW. However, Ospreay said he shares neither their philosophy nor Mox's tactics, which is why he exited Sunday. Omega got his facts about the finish to that match a little bit mixed up, but he explained away his attack at Redemption as being justifiable because Ospreay waited so long to help him. And then when he did see him there, he had a ripped plastic bag at his feet, which meant he once considered using it. So Omega smacked him straight across the face.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
Which made Ospreay angry. Omega smacked him twice more, saying Ospreay will always be a step behind because He crumbles under pressure whenever he faces it. And then he smacked him one more time, 4th smack. That sent him over the edge. He slugged Kenny back and then threatened with Hidden Blade, saying he may love and respect him, but he will kick the shit out of him if he throws hands again. Ospreay was on fire, talking about filling in for Omega while he was out, saying he did all of this to prove that AEW is where the best wrestle.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He said Omega is a massive mountain for him to climb, but he's an ace and a winner because he wants the ball. Ospreay got into an unnecessary soccer metaphor before promising he will pull the trigger to Omega's face, not behind his back, in England at AEW All In. Overall, this was a tremendous segment. Omega's best promo in AEW, Ospreay's first or second best. So let me get the criticisms out of the way before focusing on the massive positives. First, Ospreay needs to change his presentation and dress like a top guy. Second, try as they might, the Moxley part of this story remains completely nonsensical. If Mox found a way to inject himself into this and make it a triple threat, then it would make sense. But now it appears as if he and the writers are removed from the main event only to be used as storytelling fodder over the next few weeks. Ospreay's reasoning for trusting a guy who broke his neck because he happened to win the title a few times and be successful was ridiculous, especially the line about no one being there to have his back. That may have worked if we saw him try and fail to get back up on TV. That did not happen. How about all the guys who fought the writers the first time? Why not ask any of them for help? Were you not in a blood and guts match? I think it was a blood and guts match where you got your neck broken. Didn't you have teammates in that match? Why not ask them? And again, that's not even talking about Omega. And as we've said many times, there has been zero explanation from the other end why Mox was so focused on helping a guy whose neck he broke win the top title in the company when he's long claimed to be the ace of AEW. And Ospreay being surprised that the guy who tried to end his life and break his neck is not a good person. I mean, how dumb do you have to be as a babyface? I know Will is dim, but that's more dim than should be seen on TV as a main eventer. I cannot do my job as an analyst properly for all of you without pointing that stuff out. But as I said, this was a tremendous segment, and it does deserve a lot of praise, mostly from Kenny's side. Omega was on one from start to finish. He told no lies whatsoever with his perspective that Ospreay made a ridiculous, illogical decision to join the Riders. And when he lost his cool and started smacking Will across the face, that shit was peak. Kenny does not raise his ire that much. I cannot remember seeing that since New Japan. It was like the cleaner breaking free from this old man Omega, and it was awesome. Ospreay's logic and reasoning, it may have been wonky. His passion was on full display. And the close of this segment, saying he would kick the shit out of Omega, essentially putting the old man down if he doesn't stay hands off, that was a fire under the ass moment. As I have said for months, Ospreay MJF was my preferred main event for this show. And I stand by that for all the reasons I have previously mentioned. But AEW won me over to a degree on Dynamite with the way this turned to build the Omega match. We already know it's going to be a banger, bell to bell. But if they can put the writers to bed and nail the Omega Ospreay specific creative over the next few weeks, this has a chance to be the single most anticipated main event of the year for any brand, competing perhaps only with El Grande Americano against El Grande Americano Regional in AAA. That would be the 1 and 2 in terms of anticipated main event for a major show. On Dynamite, Andrade El Idolo retained the national title over Perry and Wayne, beating the latter with the DM. As if any other outcome was possible, the title looked like a kid's toy on his shoulder. It's so small and thin, and he is so massively built up right now. Andrade cut a solid English promo, kissing the Dynamite Diamond ring, still in his possession, saying he has screwed MJF and Don Callis already. Tony Schiavone then just took over the segment, telling us Andrade is focused on the AEW title, and he'll be in a match at Grand Slam Mexico for the #1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet at All In. So the new champion, given a title 4 rungs below the one he wanted, is not going to be defending his title at the show. Rather, he's going to be competing for a #1 contendership to possibly create another champion versus champion match. I don't hate having Andrade in that match. I'm just pointing out the weird circumstances. They unfortunately reverted back to the random usage of how you know here too. I forgot to mention, damn good match, best of the night, 3.75 stars, B+. On Collision, Athena led a promo for her group that I didn't even know existed. They are suddenly wanting to fight Brawling Birds because AEW failed to maintain the tag team division after creating the titles, so they need a filler feud or two before making the All-In Challenge, which is a total joke. On Dynamite, Brawling Birds backstage finally decided they want the women's tag team titles. They claimed Divine Dominion was avoiding them, which is not factual whatsoever. You decided to randomly fight singles for months and then you disappeared from TV. But okay, they're back on track now. This was probably their best promo since forming, and it was the best Jamie Hayter has looked not wearing, brown and orange and all the other weird 70s retro colors that she was like forcing on herself in the past. She was in black and jeans, and she looked great. On Dynamite, Willow Nightingale received a championship celebration with an explosion of streamers when she entered the ring. She looked the part too, holding the title, wearing a really smart blazer. Willow started crying immediately after a "You Deserve It" chant from the crowd, which got even louder for her, as there were plenty of signs putting her over. This was just an awesome moment. As she discussed being a Triple Crown champion, it was clear the injury was a total work to flip her from one title to the other. As much as I love her, she did ramble a little bit too long, but she closed strong, telling fans to keep believing because sometimes the comeback is better than the dream. Mercedes Moné predictably interrupted, getting booed to hell, and even speaking one line, it was clear how much better Willow is as a talker. She signed the contract on Mercedes' chest, leading to a shove, so Willow rubbed the title in her face. Moné took issue with Nightingale's name being all over her story, and she got STFU chants. She promised to end her fairy tale and take her style at All In. It should have ended right there as an A segment. Instead, Divine Dominion, again wearing the hockey jerseys, stumbled through a pile of streamers to chokeslam her right in the middle of the ring. Brawling Bird saved, leading to a well-booked trios match when you consider how the alignments have been made and the prominence of all 6 women for the All-In card. Willow badly outclassed Mercedes on the mic here, and this was not an instance of a heel like giving the face an opening. She's just that much better. As longtime listeners know, I have been on the Willow bandwagon for years. I always believed she had this in her and was a natural white meat babyface that could garner top-tier reactions. This was proving that out, and Mercedes is obviously better as a heel, so their roles are perfect going into this match. Not to bring WWE into this, but this was a breath of fresh air, getting a women's segment that truly mattered on a non-developmental show. I'm not sure WWE has had a single segment like this since the debut of Fatal Influence. And for a singles feud, the build to Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan at WrestleMania. That's more than 3 months ago, and that includes SummerSlam being this weekend. Great work from AEW on this. On Collision, Persephone beat a jobber in 90 seconds. Total waste of time on a go-home show. It was to make her number 1 contender for the TBS title against Maya World, and Maya retained that on Dynamite. After Maya landed a moonsault, Hikaru Shida showed up with a kendo stick. She slid it into the ring. World allowed herself to get distracted, but as Persephone grabbed the weapon, Chris Statlander jumped on the apron, stole it away, and Maya hit her fallaway slam bridge to retain. First on the move, it is way too weak to be a finisher. I love the inventiveness, but she basically places her opponent on the mat gingerly, and the bridge does not provide enough leverage to be believable. The greater issue is the booking, which is straight up abhorrent. Check this out. Persephone has been a top contender to the CMLL women's title since the start of 2025, and she's been the champion in that company since March. Her overall record on AEW shows is 3-6. Those 3 wins are over Julia Hart, Billy Starks, who got an undeserved CMLL title match that Persephone obviously would not have lost, and then a jobber named Angela Risk. She has now lost 4 F-O-U-R, TBS championship matches, including 3 this year and 2 this month. This is how AEW is booking the top champion from their closest partner promotion. You've heard me talk about how they treat Stardom talent and the men from CMLL. This shit with Persephone is absolutely ridiculous.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ripping me?
And speaking of the men in CMLL, I didn't even realize that Hechicero won the main title off Claudio. So last week, when he was in the trios match that lost to the Death Riders, I failed to point out he took another unnecessary loss there. So both of CMLL's top champions lost AEW matches in consecutive weeks. Make it make sense? You cannot. On Collision, Darby Allin, who was not on the redemption card, cut a random parking lot promo asking Kevin Knight how far he's willing to go. Bro, you just lost a title match to him. He's willing to go far enough to beat your ass. That's how far he's willing to go. Darby did not show up on Dynamite. On Dynamite, Kyle Fletcher backstage gassed himself up for defending the international title. Callis said Mark Davis is angry for losing his title, and Kevin Knight learned that he needs the family behind him. Knight put over himself for coming close against Omega. And he only said the Jet once, which was a huge improvement stylistically from his speaking. And then it got heated between Fletcher and Knight because there always has to be some interfaction issue in Don Callis' family. Kazuchika Okada ended it by randomly walking out of some room and confirming what Fletcher said. The title will stay in the family. So it seems like they're building Okada and Fletcher, 2 heels who are faction members, for the title at All In. Davis later challenged Ospreay because he wanted to take out his anger on someone, promising no interference. This product is going to get a lot better when the Callis family is done. It's as simple as that. On Dynamite, Brodito and Mike Bailey beat Fletcher, Brian Cage, and Jake Doyle. I gave this credit considering there have been extended issues between the faces and the family, but the team up in this specific match were all booked randomly. Speedball beat Doyle with his double knees in a pinning combination. This was to build a title match earned against Fletcher. That's going to be next week on the Grand Slam Mexico show. Fun match overall. On Collision, Lethal Twist beat Skyflight. This did have some level of TV build and it got credited as such, but it was nothing anyone could have cared about one iota. Total indie match. On Collision, the trios titles were on the line. Conglomeration retained over Dalton Castle and the Outrunners, who got a title match for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The Demand and Lethal Twist got involved after, so Jeff Jarrett hit Ricochet over the head with a guitar. I cannot make any of this up. It was utter dog shit. Demand then challenged for a title match. I thought it was on Redemption, but it ended up being on Dynamite. So Demand defeated Conglomeration to win the trios titles in the main event. Lethal Twist interfered at the end, hitting Orange Cassidy in the head with a title. Then Ricochet landed Spirit Gun to get the 1-2-3. I prefer the titles on Demand. Conglomeration were doing absolutely nothing with them of any legitimate value. Demand are a real trio. They've been operating together for a while. The title change was disappointing, especially considering Lethal Twist is a total non-starter as a group. Even if they get added to Demand, they're like below the three guys that are already there. Brody King saved a completely unnecessary post-match attack. Then Hangman saved with a barbed wire steel chair, which is like bringing a gun to a shouting match. Hangman hit Buckshot Lariat on Lethal to end it. So he walked out into the parking lot with his suitcase, didn't leave, stayed for 2.5 hours, and then was part of this segment. Really weird. On Dynamite, Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, and the Young Bucks sat for a pre-taped interview with Renee immediately calling it a dream match. Is it a dream match? Like, there are definite dream matches involving ex-WWE superstars and the Bucks, New Day being one of those teams. But I'm not sure I'd put Edge and Christian in that category. I digress. They each put the other team over with mutual respect for revolutionizing tag team wrestling. Cage added that they are not back to do a retirement tour, but prove they're the greatest. And Cope noted how they went 25 years between tag team title reigns. And went on from there as expected. We got to beat you to be the greatest ever. We got to beat you to prove we're the best in AEW. What I liked most about this segment is how much time it got. It felt like a real interview that was meaty and worthwhile to be shown on TV. Not a 60-second in and out deal where only one or two questions get asked and then someone interrupts it at the end. This was a real solid start to the build. Like, I don't care about this match, and they're not making me care through this segment, but was it executed well for people who do care? Abso-freaking-lutely. No question about that. On Dynamite, Mick Foley is apparently now a full-time backstage interviewer. Bang Bang Gang were there without Jay White. His absence was addressed but not clarified after that awful bump on the pay-per-view. They challenged any combination of the Dogs and the Writers to fight them on Collision. I think I'm out on these guys other than White at this point. And less is more with Foley. Like, I don't know. This just didn't fit the rest of the show. It really stuck out like a sore thumb. Overall, this was one of the better Dynamites in a while, and it was one of the best post-pay-per-view AEW Dynamites that we've gotten. And guess what? It was not because of the wrestling. Like, for all the people that talk about AEW work rate and where the best wrestle and all that bullshit, the best segments on the show were a sit-down interview, a confrontation in the ring with Willow and Mercedes, and then the main event with Omega and Ospreay. Like, that's what stood out from this episode. So when you get 7 matches on an episode of Dynamite, and I come on the show and I'm like, yeah, that show kind of sucked. Well, it's because just wrestling for the sake of wrestling doesn't matter unless you have storytelling. And now that they're building to their biggest show of the year, guess what they're doing? Storytelling. And it paid off. It was a really damn good episode on Wednesday. That wraps up AEW. So let's close this show by talking about TNA. I am going to run through a super quick update from the last month of TV coming out of Slammiversary. It turns out I never watched the Go Home show for that pay-per-view, which was solid, and Slammiversary itself delivered as we discussed last month. Like I said, this is going to be short. I think like 5-ish minutes, maybe even less than that, but let's see how it goes. Nick Nemeth opened his reign as TNA champion, running down a list of all the legends he's defeated in his GOAT career. Casey Navarro, whom he's been working alongside, didn't like the way he was moving, and after getting into it with Ryan Nemeth, Nick set a match between them. Ryan largely annoys me, which is the point, but he had a great bit where he was angry over Casey using the word brother. Navarro won the subsequent match with Nick trying to make good between them after the bell, only to turn on Casey with Danger Zone. The next week, Nick told Casey he doesn't have it and never will have it, and he deserved to not even be in his shadow anymore. Ryan attacked and they gave him an ultimatum. He confronted Nick the following week, deciding he not only had it, he was ready to go become TNA champion. Nick agreed to the match as long as KC agreed to never bother him again about anything should he lose. That happened last week. Navarro was game. He had a 385, which is a 619 over the top rope, and a code red for a false finish. Nemeth ultimately avoided Blessing in Disguise and hit Danger Zone to win. 3.75 stars, B+ match. Ricky Sosa declined invitations from the Righteous and the System to join their groups. He got attacked by the ladder and saved by Leon Slater, who lost to Eddie Edwards in a short main event. Sosa made a post-match save in kind. The Faces won a tag team triple threat against those sides the following week, though the week after that, Bronson beat Sosa after being pinned in the tag. Fabian Eichner became number one contender for the X Division title. He received a decent feature video package the following week. Cedric Alexander retained over him in what was unsurprisingly the best TNA match I have watched over these 4 episodes. 4 stars, A-. Not that you need to go out of your way to see it, but if you want some 205 live vibes with more allotted time in 2026, that's the closest you're going to get. Alexander won with lumbar check after Eddie Edwards took down Eichner with a drive-by. So he was protected in defeat. Sosa and Slater saved due to their prior issues with the System, and the match was set for next week. The Broken Hardys retained the tag team titles over the Great Hands ahead of a cinematic Righteous Deletion match, which was the primary reason I chose to catch up on TNA. This went 20 minutes. It should have been 15. It was all over the place. They went from fighting to drinking around a campfire as the Hardys forced the Righteous into a dream state where Matt's kids beat up the heels and Rebby hit a cutter. She looked great, by the way. Jeff randomly became Willow, wearing a new MAGA shirt. They used fireworks like bazookas. The Hardys emerged from the Lake of Reincarnation wearing goat masks with a goat shirt. Jeff didn't like his, so he went back in and emerged as his old Antichrist character from 15 years ago. Then he had a swanton bomb from off an excavator, and that was through 2 tables. So they won the match, retained the titles. The Hardys then cleansed the Righteous in the lake, but we did not see what happened to them. And the Hardys declared themselves forever, which seems like another track for their characters. It was definitely entertaining. Not the best one of these that we've seen, but look, at least TNA regularly books tag teams in extended feuds. Xia Brookside retained her newly won Knockouts title over Li Ying Li in a no DQ main event rematch. They're solid opponents for one another. Xia is a breath of fresh air as champion. She seemed to start a feud with Elena Black afterward. Elena delivered her best segment yet in TNA after a really rough start. Knockouts TV title tournament, Mara Sade, Heather by Elegance, Indy Hartwell, Jody Threat, M by Elegance, Thea Hale from NXT, and Jade Stone all advanced into round 2. It was tough to understand why neither Rosemary nor Allie got a chance, considering they're more talented than some of the women who advanced, I guess because they're tag team champions. Elena and NXT's Wendy Chu fought to a time limit draw, eliminating both of them from the tournament entirely. Kind of odd. Brookside attacked Black from behind after the bell, and eventually Chu as well, so at least they're going to get a title feud. And lastly here, Mustafa Ali introduced Milla Moore as the newest member of his Order 4 faction. Timu, Stacy Keebler vibes. Tasha Steele, the other woman in the faction, was visibly bothered. Ali decided to let the roster vote on a number 1 contender. Jason Hotch, who is part of Order 4, was voted on by many people to challenge his own leader. He agreed to it. That match is happening this week. So like I said, real short breakdown. That's everything that happened in TNA over the last month. Definitely, like the way I broke it down, entertaining moments. The booking is undoubtedly better after the creative regime change that they had. But is it going to get to the point where every episode is consistent and watchable, as opposed to what this was, which was basically an explanation that there was 1 or 2 segments from every episode that were quality, and then I was able to jam them all together and explain to you what's going on with the company. But look, that's the full wrap up from this episode. I knew it was going to go long. I told you I wanted to clear the deck. We have 2 more issues of performance enhancing audio making their way into your ear holes before the week is out. We will be back Saturday and Sunday with WWE SummerSlam instant analysis for night 1 and night 2 of the event. Before that, make sure you listen to our WWE SummerSlam Ultimate Preview episode, which is already in the podcast feed. You absolutely do not want to miss that, especially the preview portion, before watching SummerSlam on Saturday and Sunday. Next week, we'll be back on Tuesday talking WWE, then Thursday, NXT and AEW, and we'll see what else we throw in there. But some of these shorter Thursday episodes are more to the Silver King's liking, especially with football season coming up. On the way out, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. Hit the link on our profile. Join our Slack channel for free. Subscribe to the podcast and much more. Find us on social media at Getting Overcast. And lastly, please remember,
It's all about Defy.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And we have a bunch of these reviews to read this coming Tuesday on our next regular WWE episode. Again, don't miss the WWE SummerSlam Instant Analysis podcast on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.